Okay, let's talk about scale a little bit. I'm going to turn off this top layer and this little background layer, and I'm going to show you this great piece of artwork that I have just done. And uh, as you look at it, I've got my wonderful stick figure here that you can see, and I've got this rectangular object, and I'm not going to describe what it is. Excuse me, I'm going to cough here. A little tickle in my throat. But just to give you a really quick overview of what scale is how in a picture you determine the relative sizes of objects. And again, Pat goes into a lot of detail as to how this works, but I just want to give you a really quick overview. We have my stick figure here, we have Joe's stick figure, and I don't know if his name's really Joe. I'll give him a little hat here. Whoops, I'm not on the right layer. Can't give him a hat if I'm not drawing on that layer. Oops, I'm drawing in yellow. Well, maybe he has a yellow hat. Who knows? I'm going to just give him a little top hat here. Okay, so there's Joe, and he's standing by this rectangular object that has a little mark right here. Okay, so what is Joe's size in relation to the object? Well, right now he's as big as the object, but what if we moved Joe and then shrunk him down a bit? Okay, now he's not really easy to see now. Now, what do you think the object is? Well, if you said a building, oops, I'm on the wrong thing here. Got to turn that off. Don't want to select. If you said a building, you're probably right because Joe is really little. And if we were to again move Joe over here, he's still a little bit too big in scale, isn't he? Because he looks a lot taller than that door on the front of the building. Let's shrink him down even more. And now Joe is about the right size. So basically, scale is making sure the things that you're drawing are the proper size for the drawing that you're doing. And again, if you watch lesson 19 of art class, Pat will give you a lot more detail on how that works. And she shows you some examples from fine art that are really good illustrations as to what scale is and how it works. But what I want to do, and I'm going to turn that layer off because we won't be using that one again. What I want to do is go back to these photos. Let's bring my portrait back up here because there are times when you don't want to use proper scale and you deliberately draw something out of scale. And most often that's when you're doing illustration. And illustrators, as opposed to fine artists, will often draw something out of scale on purpose. And I've got some illustrations that I've found online that will give you an idea of what I mean. So let's look at a few of these. Okay, here's one. Okay, we've got a nice scene here, trees and some people here. Everything is in the proper scale. And then we see somebody sitting on this park bench, and then there's a line going up to the moon. And then it obviously looks like a balloon. So, wow, what do we got here? Well, do we have the moon or do we have a balloon? Well, we either have a huge crescent-shaped balloon or it's the moon. Uh, you be the one who decides. But the point is, either way, this is not drawn in proper scale. Even though if you took this string out, the moon probably would be at least closer. It's still sort of a stylized moon because of the way the crescent looks. And you also have stars right in here behind it. But that's one illustration of how an illustrator uses something that is not in what we would call proper scale. Also, if this were a real balloon, that balloon is so huge, it would be probably pulling that person off of the park bench and maybe up into the air. Okay, look at this one. This one is a fascinating one. Okay, we have an elephant here. We don't have anything else relative to the elephant, so we can't tell if this elephant is its proper size or not, and that's part of what you'll learn about in scale. But look here, we've got all of these massive trees on top of the elephant. In scale, actually, they look really quite small, but you've got clouds here. We've got birds that are probably proper size here. But we've got two different pictures merged together. I'm not sure what the artist was trying to communicate in this, but it's a fascinating use of something that is out of scale for the purposes of illustration. Okay, let's look at another one. Now, here's one. Okay, we all know that when you look up and see a full moon, it is not going to be anywhere close to that big. But we've got this young lady standing there, kind of by the dock. She's looking out on the water. There's a bridge there and boats, and you've got this massive moon. And you begin to think, well, what is she wondering? What is she thinking about right there? That's, I'm sure, part of what the artist is trying to get across. Maybe she's missing somebody, maybe, who knows? But the moon is drawn way, way out of scale and done so deliberately. If the moon were that close in the sky, we would be having serious trouble on Earth. Okay, here's another one I love. Okay, we have a giraffe. Uh, Everything around the giraffe, well, it's hard to tell, but I think it's fairly safe to say that these little things in the back are probably trees. I don't know. Well, there's a tree there, and there are bushes, and so those actually look roughly uh, in proper scale. But look here, uh, we've got a giraffe way too big for the scale. You can see a bit of a tree here, so even there, this giraffe is huge. And just to make the point, we have a cloud in front of the giraffe. So this is a massive giraffe drawn out of scale, again for the purposes of illustration. Let's look at another one. Here's one I really like. A little girl walking along the beach through the grass. She's got a suitcase and she's holding balloons, but they're not balloons, they're planets, obviously drawn way out of scale, but it helps communicate. Uh, you're seeing perhaps her dreams, the fact that she's going somewhere. We've got a suitcase here. She's walking along, and I think I don't have the sources for all of these illustrations, so I'm not sure what they went along with. But maybe here we're seeing a little girl who the sky is the limit for her. Maybe she wants to be an astronaut. Maybe she's a scientist. Who knows? But we've got planets here instead of balloons. Okay, and here's a different one. Here we have another moon, but the moon is sitting in the middle of a wheat field. So this time the moon is drawn way below scale. And again, it's not sure what the illustrator was going for, but here's a case where something is drawn way, way, way below scale. And then this one, the meaning of the illustration is pretty clear because, in fact, the title of it is, I forget, it's about COVID. So here we have somebody who is dressed in full hazmat gear and got a sprayer to disinfect. And here we have the Earth drawn way, way, way below scale. He's not spraying a globe here. He's spraying the planet, and it's kind of emphasizing the importance of trying to deal with the virus, and so the planet, which obviously, if you were trying to spray the whole planet, that's not how you would do it. But the illustrator's point here is the huge task that this person has to deal with. Okay. Oh, and that's actually the photo that we're going to be working with today because we're going to move on in just a second and do a little cartooning. But anyway, now you have at least a little bit of an understanding of illustration and when it's okay. Let me go back here. When it's okay to break the rules. You know, when you're learning art, you learn the rules first. You learn the proper way to do things. But once you have learned the rules and you know the rules, then you can break the rules to communicate with your art. But you have to know the rules first. You know, people will often say, "Oh, look at Picasso. His pictures were just so weird and so awful, and he couldn't draw." Well, no, actually, he could draw very, very well. If you look at some of his more realistic portraiture and stuff like that, artists that draw that way aren't drawing that way because they can't draw better. It's because they choose not to draw realistically. And then you have to understand, well, what are they trying to communicate in that process? So, in learning art, you learn the rules, and then, depending on what you're trying to do, you can break those rules. I'm going to actually move this back to my main screen so I can draw. And we're going to do some cartooning. I had a lot of fun with that last week. I hope you did. And cartooning is kind of a really good way to practice your sketching and have fun at the same time. So we're going to take that photo and it's one of the downsides of Autodesk is there isn't a really good way for me to put a reference photo in here. Let me see if I can do that. Let's see. Gotta find it first. There it is. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna put it up here, kind of in a corner. So if you want to draw along with me on the activities page, and then also later, I will I will put this as a link in the comments on our Facebook page, so you can download this image if you want to use it. But I'm going to just put it as a layer, and then I'll come down here and draw on layer number 6. Make sure I'm on black as my color. And I'm going to go to my pencil tool. And if I were going to make a cartoon of that image, what I would start with is just getting the shape right. Okay, so I'm looking up here. I see a general triangular shape, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, let me come back up here. I move that just a little bit more so we can see. There we go. Okay. Um, okay, I see a triangle here, so I'm going to just start and do a sketch of a triangular shape. But that shape is going to encompass the horns and the head, okay? Not just the head. Okay, and I'm gonna move these little doohickeys out of the way. Okay, now I want to get my horns positioned, so I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to quickly sketch. I come to my eraser, just take out that middle section. So now I've got my horns and go back to my pencil tool. And then I'm going to put some ears in. I notice the ear comes across from the base. Now, right now, I'm just getting shapes, just general shapes, okay? And I'm going to come over here. Okay, get another shape in there as we turn this picture into a cartoon. Okay, and then the neck comes right about here. And this one, this part of the neck comes around like that, maybe a little bit farther down. And then it's going to come up, go across. And then we have a little bird here. And the bird, I'm just going with shape again. It's going to get his general body shape. And then a head and a beak. Again, I'm not worried about too much of the detail being perfect here because this is just a sketch. I'm going to throw kind of some wings on the side here. And okay, so that's my general shape. Now, what I do now, if I was doing this with regular media, like with pencil, I would be drawing very, very lightly here because these are more guidelines than anything else. I'm going to adjust all of this. If you're doing it digitally, what you do is you reduce the opacity. Okay, which means you make it so it's not quite as dark. I made the mistake of drawing on the same layer, which is something that happens an awful lot when you're doing digital work. Uh, okay, I'm going to bring this up here. Oops. Oh, let's take it down one. Okay, so now I'm drawing on layer 2. No, I'm not. I don't want to draw on layer 2. I want to draw on layer 6. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to move over to my pen. It's going to give me a darker color. And I'm going to just work again, kind of working from the picture, but also from the basic sketch that I drew. So again, I'm cartooning, so I'm not worrying about detail as much as I am trying to begin to show a little bit of character. And now I've practiced this a couple of times today. And as I've drawn this picture, I forget what kind of animal this is, but as I have drawn it, it's kind of come out to be a lady who is kind of prim and proper, and her sidekick over here, which is the bird. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to really make that snout just a little bit more narrow, just like that. Okay, then if you look up here, the eye holes really start just at the bottom of the ear, and they're going to kind of come in like that. I'm not trying to, again, be super realistic at this point, but for starters, I want to get everything placed the way it should be. Then I'm going to tweak it and play with it. Okay, now for the nose and the mouth, have a little line and then kind of those lines here. And then I'm going to give her a nice smile. Okay, and then I'm going to come down and do this line again. And then let's do the sidekick. Okay, I'm going to give him little tiny feet and some wings. And then I've got his head. And his eyes. Okay, now what are we going to do? Well, when you're drawing a cartoon, or at least when I'm drawing a cartoon, I'm a writer too. I write stories, and this works much the same way as when I'm writing a story. Things just develop as I work with it. And again, this picture just kind of struck me as a young lady, maybe, kind of, I don't know, maybe with a little bit of an attitude. So I'm going to put her eyes like this. She's looking sideways. Okay. And I'm going to, just for fun, again, we're not going for realism here, not trying to be super accurate. Okay, I'm going to give her some earrings, maybe bell-shaped. And what's fun here is when you're doing this, you can just kind of let your imagination run wild and come up with something that that you maybe hadn't even planned on or imagined. Okay, so let's see. And I am going to give her a hat. Maybe she comes from a kind of a ritzy background, and so she's got maybe a pillbox hat like the Queen of England wears. Okay, I'm going to take my eraser and take that part out. Okay, and I'm going to actually well, I can't turn off my other layer because I'll lose my picture here. So normally I would turn off the other layer at this point. But okay, so get back on my pen and let's work on the sidekick. I'm going to give him some very stern looking eyebrows, and I'm going to make his beak kind of a frown because I think he is trying to tell her whatever it is that she's thinking of doing, he doesn't approve. So she's going to have eyebrows that kind of curl up. It's amazing the difference in expression you can get just from the eyebrows. Like if I changed that. Just the eyebrows will tend to give you a different attitude. Okay, so play around with that. Okay, so we've got her and her pillbox hat. I'm going to actually have some flowers coming out of it. And then I'm going to give her a collar. It's very frilly because I think she's kind of spoiled and into her own fashion. Okay, so there we have a really simple cartoon. Who knows where she's going, what she's doing, or what the bird is not pleased about. I'm gonna give, oops, wrong pen here. Let's get on this one. That's the wrong color now. I don't want that. Here we go. Let's give him a little bit of color. Oops. I'm drawing on the wrong layer again. One of the hazards of digital art is always know what layer you are drawing on. So I need to this up. There we go. Let me draw on this layer now. Because now I can draw underneath my lines. Let's give him a little bit of color. Okay, and then we'll give her some more natural color. So when you are doing some illustration or cartooning, have fun, let your imagination go, and ask yourself, well, what is this character doing? What is this character thinking about? What kind of person or personality does it have? You want to think, and then don't worry about being too literal. Kind of have some fun, play with it. I don't know what this young lady is thinking, but I think whoever is over here is saying, "You're not going out tonight, are you?" And she obviously wants to impress somebody because she is all dressed to the hilt here. So, and again, you could draw all sorts of different things. That's just how that particular photo struck me. And so I would challenge you to find some photos like this and have some fun with them. So be with us next week. We'll have some fun. And I'm Jim Pence with See the Light. I've had a good time with you, and I'll see you next week.